Welcome to another episode of the Nashville Dads. This week we have on author and reporter Stephen Hale. This year, Stephen released his book, Death Row Welcomes You. We talked about how he ended up in Nashville, perfectionism, what motivated him to write his book, and how it affected his mental space. Stephen is a reporter for the Nashville Banner, and we highly suggest you follow the Nashville Banner and their stories. Make sure to find Stephen's book at your local bookstore or download the audiobook on Audible. We really hope you enjoy the episode.
Yeah.
Do you have any musical talent?
I play a little guitar, which I guess everyone in Nashville does. Not
except for this guy,
professionally or anything like that. So yeah, but I mean, I love walking around. It's nice to have. I finally got a so that I could hang it on my wall, so I can just kind of grab it at any moment.
Yeah. Do you have an acoustic? I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yeah, so, it's just Wonderwall and, whatever else every once in a while to de-stress.
You just keep the capo on the second fret at all times.
That's right.
Just in case.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so. The capo is right there all the time. Because
I do.
I'm not trying to, at this point in my life, I wish that I had gotten to be a better guitar player. But at this point, it's like, I'm not trying to learn new chords. I'm trying to just play this thing up and down the neck. So it works.
You're just changing the key slightly every half step. What brand of guitar do you have? I'm just going to try to isolate. I'm going to start this out with isolating Justin in the beginning of the conversation.
I know jack shit about music.
That's okay, Justin, because I mean, you guys probably experience this. If you spend any time in Nashville, even if you kind of think you casually know about music, you end up in a conversation with someone who does music for a living, and you're like, oh, I can't be in this conversation. But I have a Taylor acoustic.
I have a Taylor also,
so which just treated me well.
Is that a good one?
It's pretty good. Yeah, I mean,
I'm slowly learning through these.
I suppose people have preferences. It's not like the most expensive Taylor that you can get either. There's a range, but it's a solid guitar, and it does. Cool. It's certainly as good as I need it to be.
Yep. I'm from Southern Indiana. My brother went to Vanderbilt, and I think he would have graduated college in 2004 or so. And I remember going into Gruhn's Guitars whenever it was still on Broadway, and walking in there and being like, if I could ever afford a guitar from this store, I would feel like I've done I've made it in some way. So we set aside enough money so I could do it. And I went to another location on 8th and bought a Taylor from there. And I'm whenever we moved to Denver, I left it at my parents' house because they're going to drive some stuff across the country. Cause I was like, I can't have this guitar be damaged in any way. So it's my fourth child.
Well, luckily you did leave it.
Correct.
As opposed to bring it in
the car. Yep.
But yeah, I that's right. Gruhn's used to be down there, and then
it was 4th and Broadway.
And gosh, I'm gonna have to turn in my Nashville card. But what's the place that makes the posters?
Hatchprint.
Hatchprint was down there on Broadway too, and man, it's a bummer that they're not anymore because those were cool spots. But yeah.
How long have you been in Nashville?
So I've been in Nashville since 2010.
Okay, so, cool.
Okay, my wife and I went to Auburn. Yeah. Which is another thing I have in common with John. We're both Auburn fans. And, but yeah, we met at Auburn. She's from North Alabama. I grew up in Florida, but we met at Auburn. And we, Nashville, we didn't really have any connection here, but she's a nurse. So, at the time it was kind of like, well, she can get a job pretty much anywhere we go. We wanted to live in a city. We both grew up in small towns. And so this was like a huge city to us. I mean, we were like, and even in 2010, it's grown a lot since then. But yeah, so we've lived here since then. It was actually funny. We like this sort of spring, we're just about to graduate and we knew we were going to move to Nashville. And we're like, we got to start trying to figure out where we're going to live. And we were college kids and not paying that much attention to the news. And it turned out it was right in the middle of the flood. And we're calling people do you think we can see this apartment? And they're like, turn on CNN. We cannot, we cannot deal with you right now.
We made national news.
Yeah. They're like, we cannot show you anything. So it was weird timing, awesome. But yeah,
but it's
been great.
That was the week I graduated college. So
no kidding.
Yeah. So went to Belmont, and I was an RA. So I actually had to, how that affected Belmont was some of the dorms had basements, and when it flooded, it knocked the power out of them. So I had to spend like a good 4 or 5 hours just sitting in a lobby of one of the dorms to let people in and out because they couldn't physically get into their room. And like, I think because that would have been like May 10th. I think I graduated on like May 14th or 15th. So it was like, how's your graduation week? Well, I'm glad no one I know is dead or lost their house. That's good.
Seriously. That's positive. Yeah. It's really weird because we did not experience it, like we weren't settled here yet. So it's not like I have any memories of it, but I in some ways still like associate it with us moving up here and stuff. So Justin, you were I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I was working at Bread and Company downtown on West End at the time. And I remember we don't have any TVs or anything, so I didn't know really what was going on other than what I saw outside.
Yeah.
And West End was like flooded.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's bad.
That's not good. That's not supposed to happen.
Justin, this is gonna blow your mind, but I worked at the Bread and Company on West End, like not long after I moved here. How long did you work there?
Oh, snap. Till end of 2010, beginning of 2011, maybe.
We might not overlap because I don't think I started working there until maybe it would have been later. And I'd have to like check, but
that's crazy.
But
I would have remembered you because I was the assistant manager, so I knew everybody that I worked with. But but that's cool. That's awesome.
That's wild.
Small world.
Bread and Company is Justin's like major connector. Like whenever we had Jeremy Ivy, as in Margot Price's husband, he was like, "Oh, I used to work at Bread and Company." And Justin was like, "I used to work at Bread." It's like a job you worked for like 3 years. Justin has connected you to like half of our guests.
Well, I mean, half of the people that worked, especially both. I worked at the Belmead one first, and then I became the assistant manager at the West End, and I would say 50 to 75% of the people that worked there were musicians.
Yeah.
Sure.
Either musicians or photographers or something of that nature. But so I like everybody that I knew was in some type of band, and I'd go and see them. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But going back to the flood.
Oh yeah.
On my way back home, I couldn't get home. Like it was flooded right in front of my community. Like there was only one exit, and it was about 2.5 feet underwater.
Yeah.
So I had to park up on a hill.
Seriously?
And I waded through that 2.5 feet of water to get back home. Because I was like, what am I supposed to do?
That's wild.
That is crazy. Yeah. Some of the pictures from then still, they're shocking to look at. Like, I worked at the scene for a long time, and we had, they had some great photos like in the archives from that. And like some of them even big, like cover photos and stuff. And I would look at them sometimes. It's like, it takes you a while to orient where in the city you're even looking at, because you can't tell where the river is because it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
Well, you had said that your wife is a nurse as well. Did she go to Vanderbilt?
She worked at Baptist, what used to be Baptist.
Okay.
And then she spent some time in the hospital setting and then some time at like surgery centers.
Okay.
And, we bounced around. We did the night shift thing and all that when we first got up here.
Because it was a very similar thing for me. My ex-wife was a nurse. We both went to Kentucky, moved to Nashville because she got a job at Vanderbilt, and she was working at the NICU at Vanderbilt. But very similar story.
Listen, if my wife had worked at Vanderbilt, I'd start feeling like this was a trap. If you and I both worked at Bread and Company, and it would feel a little too strange.
It would.
Yeah,
just a bit.
But yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good thing that she was and is a nurse too, because I did not have a job when we moved up here, which is, I was
same here.
So I was kind
hence the Bread and Company.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I was. it was like, well, we know you can get a job. And
yeah,
I guess I did that thing where when I was in college, I was an English major.
Okay.
And so when you're an English major in college and people are like, well, what do you want to do, after you graduate? And you tell them that you want to write. Like everyone on a college campus is just like, oh yeah, man, that's
cool,
awesome.
Bro.
Like great. And even the professors like, oh man, it's a great, everyone suggests that this is a great idea. Like you should totally do this, And then 36 hours after you graduate, you're like, no one is going to pay me to do that.
Nope.
Possibly ever, but certainly not just to sit in my rented condo and do it. So, it's like pretty quickly started doing the bread and company thing and freelancing and stuff. And, it worked out okay. But yeah, bread and company was good though.
Did you graduate in 2010?
I did. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I did too. My first job out of college was at News Channel 5. I helped out in their sales stuff.
Kidding.
So did admin stuff. And I think I mostly took that job because they were like, hey, we'll pay you consistently and give you health benefits. And I was like, sure, just whatever. That's fine. I'll just do whatever you want with me. I don't care.
Man, wow. We're just going to talk about bread and company now.
We'll get to fatherhood and you being an author and having articles written about you in the New York Times later. Go. But first, let's discuss some bread and company.
Bread and company. Yeah.
Stephen, how many kids do you have?
We have 2 kids. We have 2 daughters.
Sweet.
That just started 3rd grade and 1st grade.
Oh.
So 9 and 6.
Sweet. My daughters are 8 and 6. So they just started 3rd grade and 1st grade also.
Yeah.
Do your kids like school?
They do. It's like the first week or 2 are always tough. I was joking with a neighbor the other day that we all 4 of us have had meltdowns in the past 10 days at some point or another. It's like, how it's like the transitions are tough. I feel like it's like end of school into summer, and then end of summer into school is takes a little time to calibrate again.
I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I have 3 kids. I have an 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and 2.5-year-old who's almost 3. And the last 2 weeks before school starts, it's just kind of like, guys, I've just entertained us for 2.5 months. I don't want to put on a movie, but I'm trying here. We'll go to the zoo again. We don't want to go to the zoo. Then what do you want to do? I'm tired.
Yeah.
They say they don't want to go to the zoo?
Oh, I mean, after you've gone every other week for 2.5 months, they're like, yeah, we don't want to see the baby otters again. And I'm like, the baby otters are pretty cute. I don't know.
Yeah. I will say I try really hard not to do the when I was a kid thing. But man, the summer is tough because my wife and I talk about this. My memory of the summer, and not that it was negative, but I just did nothing.
I did nothing.
Absolutely
nothing.
It's my dad worked from home.
Yeah.
And so he was there. A lot of times he would be in the house, but he's working. Mm-hmm. And my, don't get me wrong, my parents were super involved. I'm very lucky. But during the summer, it was we still have to work. And so you just have to sit on the floor and pretend you're doing something. I don't know. I just did, you just, for 7 hours, you just have to be here. Yeah. And that's a hard concept to explain to young children. But
I feel like when we were kids or in middle school or high school, I think since video games and everything were still so new, my parents would be like, cool, just go play Final Fantasy 7 or Ocarina of Time or something like that. And I would do that for 2 months straight.
No, that is totally true. We didn't have video games in our house, but I think about this with the movies because we try to limit the screen time, and of course there's more of it in the summer. It's why not? You can watch a movie. That's but fine. I literally, I would watch multiple movies a day. Yep. I was just watching movies and no one cared. No one
Back
thought
in
this was
my
a bad
day,
thing. Yeah.
Our brains turned to mush.
And we're fine.
We're fine.
We got jobs at Bread and Company.
That's
and
right.
We were making food and we were productive people.
Steven, do you have 2 girls?
Yes.
Nice. How do you like being a girl dad?
It's great, man. I for whatever reason I always wanted daughters, I just when I was growing up and once I got old enough to have thoughts about having a family, I was just and wanted to have a little girl, and me and my wife got married, and of course if I had a little boy, I'm sure I'd be you know what I'm saying. But yes. In some ways I was afraid, I was a little anxious about the prospect of having a boy. I like, oh, this is the therapy session of our
Yes,
chat, but
sorry,
like
man.
it I don't know. I think it like triggered some insecurity I have about like being sufficiently masculine, or like
of course.
whether I know how to like use tools well enough, or like I'm not like I'm not like a handy guy. Like I can't fix things in the house, like stuff like that. And it's like I'm fine with it for the most part now, but it's like an insecurity sometimes, right?
Of course.
And when I thought of like having a little boy, I don't know. It's like it brought up a lot of stuff like that I don't think I realized I had. That I was kind of like, oh, like. I don't know why. I have a great relationship with my dad. Like it's no like trauma. It's just like for some reason and I don't even mean to be like, so like gender essentialist about it, but I'm just being honest. That's what it made me feel. I was like, I don't know like how I will handle that. And then, of course, what you realize once you actually have kids is like all that kind of goes out the window. Cause like my girls are doing all kinds of different stuff anyway, that so it's not really true.
You just
once
figure it out.
Once they're there, it's not really true, but like that was an anxiety I had. But it's awesome, man. I love it.
No, I mean, like, to relate to you, whenever we sold our house and we got the list of like things that we need to get fixed from the home inspection, my first thought was I should know how to fix all of this. And it's like I've never been on a roof before. I've never walked out there. I've never replaced a shingle board. My first thought is, I should know how to do this. And it's like that. Your dad didn't.
You should have called me.
Well, it was like, that's a different discussion of if I thought our buyers needed that list to be done or not. But no, I have that weird relationship with masculinity as well, where most of the things I care about aren't what society says is a normal and masculine way to respond to things. And so whenever someone's like, oh, do you know how to do this with your hands? I'm like, if it's IKEA furniture, I can build it really well. But like, if you're like, hey, like Justin's really good at like, you remodeled your bathroom. And I'm like, oh, I don't even like, if you're like, make this flush, I could have the leveler on it. And I'd be like, I don't think this is flush. My brain does not make sense in any of this.
I might be able to make things, but they are going to be cockeyed or unlevel. For some odd reason, I have some unlevelness in my eyes, but
well, you do wear glasses.
That Nate Bargatze bit where he talks about like repair people showing up at his home and being like, so where's your water heater? And he's like, I don't even know if we have one of those. Like, we die laughing at that bit because like it is that thing where people will come to the house and it'll be some guy with a tool belt and he shows up and he's like here to fix the thing. And he kind of looks at me like, oh, well, what you got going on here. And I'm like, my guy, like I'm pretty sure I forgot you were coming today. Like, I don't know I don't know what I try to pull my weight, but I don't know how the dryer works. So I mean, I know how to, you know what I'm saying? I know how to use the dryer. I don't know how to fix it.
You press the button and it works. I get it.
Yeah. I don't know how it mechanically works.
Well, I need to replace the coolant in this. And you're like, yeah, man, that sounds good. Cool away.
Yeah. And and you're trying to like stick with them in the conversation, but like, oh yeah, that looks like that's the heating, component is definitely out here. And I don't know.
My favorite Mitch Hedberg joke, or one of them, is him talking about how he doesn't understand cars unless the gas tank is on E. And he's like, then I get really cocky and I pull out my toolkit, AKA wallet, and I go fix the problem.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too, is like, there is a personality part of it too, I think, where it's like some people just actually do like fixing things or tinkering with things. Yeah. And I've never been that way. Like growing up, like I didn't do model planes or like, I don't know if it's a focus. Like I wasn't drawn to it. I didn't like it. I found it frustrating. So like, there's even that part of it where if something's broken, I don't look at it and go like, man, I bet I can figure this out. I don't want to do that. I don't care to do it. Like, I just want to call someone and have them do it. And it's really funny because my wife is pretty much the opposite. Like she will look at a broken appliance and be like, I don't know, I think I can do this. And sometimes she's totally right, but it's just like, I don't believe that I can. And I'm pretty sure I'm right that I can't, so.
At least you're true with yourself.
It depends on what it is. So like at our house, we had to replace like the faucet on the kitchen and the garbage disposal. So I felt like I went through like a synopsis of like, if I mess this up, what's the worst case scenario? And it's like, okay, cool. If I change out the faucet, it's pretty straightforward. You hook things up to here, and if it leaks, you turn it off and call a plumber. So I knew what my risk was. But for some stuff, you kind of go through that thing in your head of like, okay, this is broken. What happens if you mess with it? It gets really broken. Maybe don't.
Yeah, I will say YouTube is a great tool for things that you're like, I don't know what to do. You just watch a million videos and you can pretty much figure it out from there.
You're right. There's some guy has fixed everything on YouTube. I had what you just said, Devin, makes me think of this. I had a friend who still is a friend and is a mechanic. And as long as I knew him, though, even before he was like professionally a mechanic, like just he would want to be like, let's pop the hood on this thing. Let's, And he just had that. Obviously, it's because he had learned about it and he had knowledge, but he also had the confidence to be like, he could be like, I'm going to take everything out of your car and we're going to figure this out. And I was with him one day and he was trying to fix something on my car. And I had this like epiphany. It was like, I realized that my anxiety is if we take this apart, part of me does not believe that we're getting it back together.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a weirdly like relevant thing in various parts of my life because it's bled into my like writing life too, where I like for a long time, like I have a hard time, like doing, people talk about writing. They're like, just write a crappy draft of this and then write a good one and then write another one. And I have a hard time doing that because like when I write the thing and then the thought of going back and let's take this out, let's move this around. I'm like, I'll never get it. I don't know how good this is now, but I don't think I'll ever, it can only get worse if I start messing with it. I don't think I can like, it's weird. It was truly like a life-changing realization. They're like, oh, that's basically what I'm afraid of in many areas.
Yep.
So if I take this apart, it will not get back together.
Do you have perfectionist tendencies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which is really interesting because for the longest time I would deal with a lot of like anxiety and stress about these types of things, whether it was my writing or something like that. And my insightful wife and other people in my life sometimes would be like, therapists or whatever would be like, would bring up like perfectionism. And I was always like, trust me, I'm not a perfectionist. Look at my car, look at my desk.
I'm messy as hell.
Yeah. Like that's how I always associated it. Basically what I was saying is I'm not a perfectionist. I can't be a perfectionist because I'm not perfect. So obviously I'm not perfect. And they were like, no, that's just it. Like the fact that you even are thinking of like that is because you're looking at these things like you're what? Yeah. So that was a very important realization to be like, oh yeah, that's definitely what is going on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always just thought, well, real perfectionists actually do accomplish the thing that I guess I don't know. When you say it out loud, it doesn't make any sense, but I guess that's what I was thinking.
Dude, so talking about like building stuff, I will get to like, if it's not like IKEA furniture or something that's really straightforward where it tells you all the steps, like I will get to like 70% of it and then be like, can I just be done? And then I'll rush through it because my thought of like my expectation and reality are so different that I lose the calmness to like adjust. I'm basically like, well, I've already I messed it up here. Like I tried to make something out of wood once and like 70% of the way through, I was like, this isn't as straight as I thought it would be. None of this is that good. So screw it. I'm just going to finish it so I can be done with it. Where I feel like a more experienced person is like, oh yeah, if I just do this, if I correct here and there, everything's fine. But my perfectionist tendencies are like, man, it's already screwed anyway. So let's just be done with it. Let's be done with it. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Not
No,
healthy.
that's no. You're totally right. I totally get that and relate to that. And it is frustrating how it can actually result in you doing worse work. Like you would sort of think that like, oh, being a perfectionist, like, and I'm sure in some narrow ways, like people are perfectionists and they actually do things that are very precisely good. But like in a broader sense, it can definitely just lead to you doing a lot of things not your best, and also it's miserable while you're doing it. So it's like the worst of both,
Yep, pretty much. And like hopefully now like I have the ability to realize whenever I'm getting to that point of like I just want to be done, I don't care how this looks anymore, and then be like, hey, how about you just come back to it in an hour, because all you really probably need is a break and to recenter a little bit, then you'll be fine. But like 5 to 10 years ago, me would have just been like, fine, I'll just put the glue here and put it on, I don't care anymore, I'm done.
Right. And I don't know if there's some kind of like coping mechanism there where you're just like, oh, well, I didn't really even try to make it perfect anymore. So it's not, but when I was at the Nashville scene, editor of ours, Jack Silverman, who was the managing editor for a long time, he said, I'll paraphrase it, but I mean, he said a thing to us about putting out the paper and that really helped, that I still think of, which is, he was like, we pour a lot of ourselves into this every week, this print paper that comes out, and you guys are working on stories, and like you're trying to make it the best you can do, and you're stressing out. And I'd be up through the night, especially when I was younger. I mean, I would be like having what I later learned were panic attacks, essentially, like just trying to do these things. And he'd be like, but the paper comes out on Thursday, and like people are throwing it away, and a new one comes out the next week. Like these, like it's, like people, like you could go into a bar and just see one of these beers soaked on the floor. Like, so you got there, and there was something healthy about being like, do your best, but this thing is just going to get replaced by the next one you're going to do. Like, it's not you're not carving this in stone kind of thing. Yeah.
The permanence of what you're doing isn't to the level that you probably anticipated as you're writing a story.
Right. And so it is sort of very helpful to be like, okay, like, this is
fine.
It's all right.
But it's not the end of the world. That's what I always tell the managers that I have, because I work for a landscape company.
Okay, yeah.
And I tell them, it's just landscape. Like, if we don't mow something or F something up, it'll be okay. It's not life-threatening. It's not something that is going to cause somebody to die, hopefully.
Right. But like do your best, and you can go back and fix it, and you know, and actually landscape is a perfect example, right? Because listen, you'll get another opportunity to cut that grass or do that. Yeah. Like the stuff's going to keep growing. You'll do it again. Yeah. It's not like it's not going away. Yeah. So it's not going to be the last time. That was a really difficult thing to kind of accept with when I started working on the book, is because I had it built up in my mind so much of like, this is this thing that every word I want to be kind of just so. And of course you try to do that, but like, you do have to, like, I don't know, there's diminishing returns at a certain point, so it's like that was a hard lesson to learn. And I had this moment with the book where I would write a chapter, and I might send it to like, again, my wife being as insightful and knowing me as well, she refused to read the chapters as I wrote them, because I think she knew that it was a procrastination. Yeah. It was kind of like, hey, read this, so that I could sort of stop and like meditate on that instead of just keep going, just keep writing, just finish this thing. I would want to stop and be like, oh, check this out. See if this is good. I don't know if it's good, like whatever. That I was sort of like, she refused to cater or sort of like indulge my kind of like a spiral that I was in. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be very helpful. But I had this thing where I would write it, and I'm working in like a Google Doc, and I'm writing these chapters. And my whole life I've wanted to write a book, and I'm like, wow, I'm writing this book, and they're saying that they're going to print it and put it out. So like, this is awesome. I'm writing it. And then I would read back over it, and I would go like, this does not sound like a book to me. Yeah. Like I read books. This doesn't sound like one. And I forget who it was, but at a certain point, someone was just like, well, like it probably will when it's in a book. Like right now it's just on your computer. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
you're reading a Word document, man.
Yeah. Like, like, I don't know what you mean. Like it will be a book when they put it in one. Yeah. Like, so it was a similar kind of thing of being like, okay, maybe I just need to keep typing away here and tried to.
No, but it's really hard. Like, I've played guitar for like 20 years or so, but if right now you sat me down and were like, hey, go write a song, I'd be like, every chord progression I play, I would be like, no, this doesn't sound as good as this. Like, here's who I wish this sounded like. Like, if I play a G chord, I can already think of 5 songs. I wish whatever I was going to do, I wish that it sounded like. I would imagine if I ever tried to write a book, it'd be similar. If I'd write a paragraph and be like, man, who could write this better? 20 other people.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And well, and the thing, it's always easy to tell this to other people than like yourself.
Without question. Yeah.
But it's like, the thing is like, it's like there are two things that are true. It's like 20 other people. There probably are 20 other people that could write it better. Yep. But the other thing is they're not going to. Yep. There aren't going to be 20 versions of the book that everyone will compare and be like, oh gosh, like he's definitely the 20th on this list.
21 out of 20 somehow.
So like, and it's like, I did have to break through that wall too of going like, okay, there actually isn't going to be, and even with myself, because sometimes I would think, wait, no, I could actually write this better. Like literally, this sounds psychotic, but like literally I'm finished with the draft, and part of me is thinking I should start over. Like I should definitely take another run at this.
Yeah.
And it's like,
why?
First of all, no one who reads this is like, yes, make it your best, edit it, try to rewrite parts that you need to. That's all important. But like, no one is going to read. You're not putting out 6 versions of this thing for people to like compare. Like that's not. So yeah, you can really go down the spiral with that though. It's like, and not even just with like creative things, but just any kind of like effort in life. I think, you can really kind of, or at least I should use I statements. I can go off in the weeds there.
It's the reality of getting older. And I think a lot of getting older, especially when you have kids, is this constant evaluation daily of expectation versus reality and the dissonance that exists between the two of them. And what do you do with that dissonance? Basically, I think is a lot of how I think I've matured as an adult or person is whenever my expectation and my reality aren't the same, who do I become in that moment? And do I like who that person is? And how do I improve on myself in those moments? Because that usually is where I show a lot of character I didn't know I had. Yeah. When something doesn't go, when what I thought I could control didn't actually get controlled the way I thought it would, for lack of a better way to put it.
It makes me like more empathetic for my kids and want to be more for them, because like, if I have a hard time with that in my day, and I'm like, I'm 36 and I'm like supposedly this functioning adult, it's like they're like, that they're in some ways literally not able to handle it sometimes, like that, and so, but at the end of a busy day, it's very easy to just expect them to be like, well, look, it didn't go how you wanted, but that's just life, and it's like, well,
it is.
They don't really know that yet. Yeah. Like they can't really, they actually don't have the experience to like fully get that that's the truth, you know, because they're still on the point where it's like, they think something's going to happen. They really do think it. And it's like, when you realize that I'm still doing that all this time later, it's like, I should probably be more understanding of them doing it.
Pretty much. And transitions are really hard with kids. And I have to remind myself that, I have 37 years of transitioning from one thing to the next. And my 6-year-old has 6 years of it. So I should be more communicative and more empathetic, basically, is what I realize daily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, okay, let's actually talk about your book, which you did finish writing. So congratulations on writing a book, man. That like, you've got to publish. It's going to be on Audible. Like, it's a thing. It's a real thing.
It is coming out. It's available in fine bookstores everywhere, and it's going to be out in audio form next week, which is actually incredible timing here.
Oh wow, on the 20th, right?
Yes, on the 20th. Yeah, it's called Death. It's called Death Row Welcomes You.
Death Row Records, right? It's Death Row Records. It's a
Well, okay. You know what's funny about that though?
Suge Knight.
Yes. That's what's funny is for the like now it's out, it's released, and so it's out in enough places. Like, but like if you go online and like look up Death Row, I want to say like maybe I think there's a book called Welcome to Death Row. Maybe so if you Google Death Row Welcomes You, you'll get like some stuff about my book and some stuff about Death Row Records. Which is cool. I think
that's awesome. That's cool.
But yeah, so it's a book about Tennessee's death row, specifically during this period of time from 2018 to 2020, end of 2020, when the state executed 7 men on death row, and it was the most people that had been executed in that kind of period of time since like the 40s. And in the middle of that, I was at the scene at the time and covering criminal justice and covering death penalty cases, and started reporting on some of those cases as those executions were coming up. And in that process, I met some folks who are in this community of people who go out to Riverbend Maximum Security Institution here outside of Nashville and visit people on death row. Mm-hmm. And they're not like direct family members. They're not, death row groupies or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like they're just sort of like regular folks who maybe through a church or through some community organization or whatever got invited out to the prison and have developed these ongoing relationships with these guys on death row. And so the book is really kind of about this execution spree and this community that I kind of accidentally stumbled into while reporting on that. And you know, so I got to know some of the people on death row, and one person in particular, a guy named Terry King, who I still talk to, and yeah, so that's kind of what it's about. And it's not the lightest subject, obviously, but yeah. So it was a long time coming, but it is out there, which is great.
You said you became relatively good friends or close to one of the guys. What was his name again?
Yeah, his name is Terry King. This is a guy. So basically, when I was, as these execution dates were coming up, in particular the first of the bunch, I was trying to write about these cases, and I was trying to find a way to get in touch with some of the guys out on death row just to let them speak if they wanted to, because these execution dates were coming up and there's basically no media access to the men on death row. And so I just was had been asking around, and actually through a funny series of events, I was at the courthouse one day for a court proceeding in this trial that was going on about the lethal injection protocols in Tennessee, the drugs they use and how they use them. And I ran into Demetria Kaladimos, who anyone in Nashville will know, and who's now incredibly I get to work with at the Banner now. And she was there, and we had met a few times or whatever, and so we were talking, and I mentioned to her that I was trying to find a way to give these guys a chance to comment, or say something if they wanted to. And she goes, "Oh, well, I've visit out there. I can pass something along for you if you want." She just said this very
casually,
sort of nonchalantly.
Yeah.
And so I was blown away by that, but that's how I learned that there were these people who were visiting out there. And she said, "Well, let me, I'll put you in touch with some of the people who go out there." And I ended up meeting a man named David Bass, who is also an Auburn alum, actually, and a great guy. And I met up with him, got to talk to him, heard his story, and his whole story's in the book, and all this is in the book. But he invited me out there as kind of a guest with him to go out to the prison, and he introduced me to Terry King, who's the man that he'd been visiting at that point for like 5 years or so. And so, so I met Terry that way, and then kind of kept going out there. Eventually got to where I was on the list. Terry could call me on the phone, and so we talked on the phone and stuff like that. So, so yeah, it's turned into it was a life-changing kind of thing. And it's turned into a very special relationship in my life. But yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
Yeah. Would you say with your book, was your hope to share the stories of the people on death row, or to like just let it? Because I feel like people on death row, most of the American public don't really care about what their life is like once they're on death row. What angle or what was your hope whenever you started writing the book?
I wanted to try to write about, there are all these kind of a few different groups of people whose lives intersect. More or less on death row. That is the men on death row, the victims of the crimes they were convicted of, and then these people who were visiting them. And I during the time when I was reporting on these cases, I was able to read through a bunch of the clemency applications that the men on death row submit to the governor, basically ask for their life to be spared. And essentially they're full of stories from their life, interviews with people who grew up with them and who knew them, old teachers, family members, who just describe what their life was like before they were arrested and charged with whatever and sent to death row. And, that honestly was a life-altering sort of experience to read through that, because I went from seeing what we all know about the people on death row, which is usually just a mugshot and a crime,
Yep,
to okay, here's this whole life that they lived before that. And, in my experience, I did not come across one that didn't include mental illness, profound poverty, child physical and sexual abuse, or all of those combined. And so that really made me want to try to write about their whole life and say, okay, here's these people on death row. Here's what their life was like growing up, their upbringing. Then here's the crime they committed, and in all its, as horrible as it is, I tried not to spare the details of that. And then here's who they are now through these people that have gotten to know them, in some cases 30 or 40 years later on death row. And so my feeling was, if I can, I just we're so removed from people who are sentenced to death. You don't see them a lot, you don't hear from them. And I really just wanted to say, if we can look this thing, like, be clear-eyed about it and look clearly at the kind of upbringing they had, the kind of childhood they had, the kind of what made them, and then look clearly again, not, look straight on at what they did and how horrible that was. And then look at who they are now straight on, and not look away from any of it. Then, like, okay, that people can make up their mind what should be done with that, but that's the equation that I feel like I had to try to get all of that in. Because it's like, if you're going to, Terry, the guy I was talking about, he's been on death row longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is a guy who, and he doesn't claim he's innocent. He was convicted of a murder that he does not deny committing. I mean, he's like, that happened, I did that. And he's profoundly sorry for it in his case, and has, we'll talk about that. But like, but to me, I was like, if I've got to be able to say, here's what his childhood was like. Here's what he did when he was 21 or whatever. But here's who he is now, a whole lifetime later, And so I really wanted to do that. And with the visitors, a lot of their stories are in there too. Is like how they ended up coming to death row, and kind of, so I wanted to try to make it the intersection of those lives too. But as it relates to the people on the guys on death row, I really just, I don't know. I really wanted to try to look at all of it, and so much of it gets obscured. And so, because talking about parenting, I mean, I would read these stories of these guys' lives, and, it's not to say that everyone who suffers abuse as a child or has mental illness or anything is going to grow up and kill someone. Obviously not. Plenty of people live through those things and don't do that. So it's not that it's not an excuse, or it's not that, they had, anything like that, but it's certainly a context and an explanation. And I would read these stories and go, man, if you switched my childhood for this one that I'm reading about right here, I cannot tell you for sure that I wouldn't be in prison right now either. Yep. And so that was just like a radically kind of life-altering thing to experience, to see. So yeah, I mean, and I think about it a lot as a parent. Is just like, thankfully my household is nothing like the ones that I've read and wrote about. But you realize that, like, man, telling these kids I love them is not nothing. Talking to them, apologizing to them when I get frustrated, like, is not nothing. Like, and it may sound dramatic to like say that in the context of talking about death row, but it's it made me think about that stuff, because I was like,
people don't realize the profoundness of your parents and what they and how they can essentially basically mold you into the person. The person.
And again, it's like, it's not to say that I don't know, maybe I get overly defensive about this, but I feel the need to stress that it's not to say that, because I know there are so many people who had pretty brutal upbringings and pretty horrible parents, to put it bluntly, and who are incredible people now. And like, so it's not that that's like impossible, but man, I wouldn't, if you could you would definitely avoid it if you could. You would definitely,
Yes.
you wouldn't roll those dice if you if you didn't have to. And so like, there's no question that, I would just read about these guys and go, man, everything I want for my kids, they didn't have any of that. Yeah. And so like, I have to include that in my equation of how I'm seeing them,
Mm-hmm. But it's almost like a analytical overview of, if you read 7 stories of someone's lives and how they ended up murdering someone or doing something worthy of death row, you're like, what's the correlating things here? Oh, abuse, something like that happens to all 7 of them. You know what it can potentially lead to in some scenarios.
Well, that and also just, and look, I'm not going back to our perfectionism conversation. Obviously not batting 1,000 at this, but what it does make you think of and want to try both, with your kids, but with anyone is like, you're seeing a snapshot of this person.
Mm-hmm.
You read some story of someone online who did some crazy thing, and I'm guilty of it as anyone. It's just a story. It's just a headline on your phone, and you kind of be like, this person's awful, or this is hilarious, or whatever it is. Like, and you're seeing just a snapshot of that person, but it's like they are the sum of where they came from and how they grew up and what, and so in the most extreme cases, which basically death row is probably perhaps the most extreme case, but just in everyday cases, it's worth thinking about. Like, man, what if someone does something that makes no sense to me? Like, well, what would make a person do that? Why might a person have ended up the way that they are? Even if it's just today, like what happened today that made them do this? And as a society, I just think it's like, it's so important to you mentioned the correlations and sort of seeing the similarities in all these cases. It's like, well, gee, it's worth asking, like, why are we reliably producing like these cases? Like I don't imagine that we're ever going to get to a point where no one commits crimes or no one kills anyone else. Mm-hmm. But man, it's worth thinking about, like, why we have a society that manages to create people who are capable of doing these things, and not just swooping in at the very end point and going, well, this person did this thing and that's bad. So it's like, there's so many questions before that are worth asking too.
Yep. Do you consider yourself like a naturally empathetic person? Because you kind of wrote a book about helping tell people stories and kind of like being empathetic with what their life is.
I think so. I mean,
I'm assuming like you are.
It feels like a weird thing to say about oneself, but I mean, I think so. Yeah. I think so. And this, I certainly want to be. But I do think I tend to think of things in that way.
I know, because you're like the court reporter for the Banner, right?
Yeah. So I cover like criminal justice, public safety, broadly speaking. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Sweet. Do you, to me, that's a lot of shining light on stories that people don't want to hear about, basically, or they'd rather look away from. What makes you, did you choose to be that type of reporter, or did you end up being that type of reporter?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I think. I mean, part of it is that when I started out and I was freelancing, I was just take any assignment I could get. So which was great because you get experience just writing about anything that, and especially, I'm so grateful for papers like alt weeklies like The Scene, and at one time the City paper here in Nashville as well, that were these free weekly papers that, going back to when I moved to Nashville in 2010, my wife had an interview for a nursing job. She dropped me off at The Scene's offices, and I just walked in there and was like, hey, like maybe I can. And the great thing about that sort of place is like, they were like, well, I don't know. Well, you got an idea? Like, do you want to try something? Yeah. Because it's like, they're not paying you a ton of money to write a freelance story. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you can get a shot at it. You can kind of you can try. But I say all that to say that, like, so I started kind of writing about everything. I would do movie reviews, and I would write about, some metro politics or state government, but I eventually over time, I started really becoming very interested in like criminal justice stories and trying to write more and more of those. And so I sort of ended up going in that direction. And then that led into covering these death penalty cases. And so it sort of built on itself and like became a thing that I had written a lot about. But yeah. And as far as like shining the light on things, like, yeah, I mean, I like, I like to write lighter stories for sure. I mean, when I was at the scene, I got to write about Nashville becoming like the sort of destination for bachelorette parties and things,
little different than death row.
Those stories are a blast and they're interesting and they're, cultural stories like that are interesting too. But yeah, but like all things being equal, like, yeah, I like to feel like we're telling people something that they might not know otherwise, or like, yeah, they might prefer not to look at, I the criminal justice stuff, I've always felt for a long time, I have felt passionate about and trying to kind of shed some light on it. So
did you ever want to be a lawyer or anything?
When I was younger, I definitely was, it was something that I was interested in. I've always like talked a lot and been argumentative. And so people always told me that
you're probably a lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, interestingly, so I was at the scene for 10 years and then I left the scene and I spent 2 years working, doing private investigation for a defense attorney. So I kind of got to spend some time in this sort of criminal defense legal world, which was endlessly fascinating. And I worked at AK Investigations in Nashville with an awesome crew of people and I loved that work. Ultimately the opportunity with the banner came up and the itch to get back to kind of writing was always there. But so I did get to kind of, get some experience in that area. And it was very interesting. And, I can see the draw to it. I will say like, any kind of law, we were dealing in criminal defense, but like, man, the stress and workload is intense, so it didn't necessarily make me want to become a lawyer, but I also could like sort of see why people are like really, getting amped up for it. And I love a good legal thriller, but,
well, I don't think you ever call a lawyer because you're having a good day. So that's part of,
Yeah. They're not necessarily dealing with like, the most,
cheery,
the most rosy events. Subjects. You're that's a good way to put it. Yeah. You're having a rough day when they talk to you.
Yep. I used to, before I quit working and started staying home, I worked at a dentist office. And realistically, the business model for a dentist office is you hope people are proactive or they're having one of the worst days of their lives. That's basically your business model. Will you use your dental insurance and come in for cleanings, or can you not eat?
That's wild. Wow. That's true.
And spend thousands of dollars.
Pretty much. So, you would spend your days in a pretty heavy mindset dealing with or focusing on being empathetic towards people on death row. Do you feel like whenever you got home, were you able to separate that? So like you could be like, did that affect you once you got home, like being around your daughters? If that's not too personal of a question to ask.
No, it's not too personal at all. The reason I'm sort of hesitating is like, there's a lot of strands going on at the same time that I was trying to disentangle. So like I sold the book. I started working on the stuff that ended up going into the book in like late 2018 into 2019. And then kind of trying to bring it together as a book idea, but we sold the book in 2020. Okay. So it was like COVID pandemic, and at the time I thought several naive things all at once. So just like one, okay, I've been reporting on this and writing about it already in my day job. And so this actually won't be that difficult, like logistically, like for me to write this. Two, the writing about like the heavy subject, as you mentioned, even though the subject matter was tough, writing about it had a sort of cathartic effect for me. So I didn't really feel like it was going to be that hard for me to spend a lot of time in this subject matter because I was like, well, it hasn't been so far. Like, I think this is going to be fine. I underestimated that. And then I was like, well, it's pandemic. We're all working from home. Like, this is actually going to be great. Like, I'm going to be more productive. I was like, none of that was true. It was like, turned out to be very hard for me to just functionally, in a writing sense, for me to write it. Like some of which we've already talked about with perfectionism and stressing about it and all that. The subject matter did end up like just the weight of it did end up being very difficult, sort of mentally and emotionally. And I didn't always handle that, I don't think, so great. And then, yeah, like the COVID aspect of it, like, was it there? So, I don't know that it So yeah, I mean, it was hard. To answer your question, as far as me, how it affected me, like parenting, like it definitely affected it. It's hard to necessarily point to how. I don't know that it wasn't necessarily that I was like, I don't know that it's that I was like, okay, I'm dealing with this harsh material and now I'm becoming like a harsh person, but I wasn't present all the time. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times I was very like, through that period, I had like this anxiety that kind of, I don't know what the right metaphor is, metastasized or transitioned into like some depression that
became cancerous in some way.
Yeah. That I would just not be very present. And so that was around my kids. I was with my wife, like I'm somewhere else right now,
Yeah.
Know that you're not alone.
Yeah. Well, and not always even just like, oh, I'm in my head, I'm just thinking about this work I need to do, but it was just, not even like I'm specifically somewhere else. I'm just not here. I'm like, it was psychologically not. And so that, that was definitely tough and resulted me definitely not being like the dad I want to be all the time. So yeah, that was a struggle for sure. And I mean, I can't articulate enough like how grateful I am and how much I wouldn't be like in a healthy place I am now if it weren't for my wife. One, for like kind of shouldering that and during that time when in hindsight it was like it was absolutely not anywhere close to a 50-50 like split that we were doing there. Like she was shouldering the kind of psychological health of our family in a way that I at the time didn't of course did not understand. Yeah. Or didn't really realize, because there were periods there where I was like, well, I'm fine, and it's like I wasn't, but it's when you're in it, you kind of think
I could be worse.
What's the problem? Like this isn't, Yeah. Anyway, so that's like huge, and then also, I mean, it's also been a thing that now our girls are a little older, like there are opportunities that we've had to talk to them and be like, like you're having a hard time with this right now. Like daddy's had some times when I was like not doing so well and it was really hard for me, and it made me like not as kind as I wanted to be, or not as like, paying attention to you. This, it's like, and so it's allowed us to do some of that, but that's a long way of saying, yes, it was hard at times.
Yeah. Were your girls 4 and 2 during the pandemic, like when it started?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Around then.
Then,
I mean, my daughters are basically the same age, and explaining to a 4-year-old that I think it'll always be really hard to know how to communicate to your kids how weird of a year 2020 was, and how much uncertainty there was, and how no one knew what was going to happen next and everything, and how you tried to figure that out and then communicate it kindly to a 4 and a 2-year-old who only care about, can I watch TV or eat snacks, and play with dolls.
Right. And I was also just, again, at that point for me, and maybe a lot of people learned this lesson during that time, but it's a lesson I've had to learn more than once, unfortunately, but like I was not as good at noticing like the effect that sort of ambient stress was having on me.
Yeah.
So if someone would be like, oh, like you seem really like stressed out or a bit, I would kind of be like, well, nothing stressful specifically has happened to me today or whatever. Like I wasn't necessarily like, it's, it's like a mindfulness thing or whatever, where I wasn't necessarily feeling like my body or feeling my mind and going, well, I am actually near my max here, and, the pandemic, gosh, that would happen like 3 times a day, because it was just, there was so much stuff like kind of in the atmosphere that was anxiety inducing or stressful.
Yep.
But if you're not like sensitive to that, you just walk around like snapping at everyone, and everyone's like, what's going on? And you're like, I'm fine, leave me, like, so it was, for me anyway, it was that's a thing I think of a lot with that, because it was easy sometimes to get lulled into like, oh, this is just life now, and forget like, this is actually very stressful time. Like, like,
this
and it's
sucks.
affecting my kid. It's affecting my kids. It's affecting me. Like, we're both stressed. So how are we doing? All that kind of thing.
Because I know I look through stuff through a like cause and effect, very logical thing of like, whenever I worked a job, why are you stressed? This person yelled at me, so I'm naturally stressed. You don't look at it though through like, what air have I been breathing all day? How hot is the temperature of the water I've been sitting in all day? Oh, I just in the background listened to a news report saying the death numbers from the pandemic for the day, or how many new cases there are. What does that mean? It means I don't know what to do, basically. So no, I'm glad that cloud seems to have left you. Hopefully,
it has.
To some extent.
It has. But I'm in a much better place now, thanks to my wife and several medical professionals and some medical intervention. So
I'm a big believer of like, sometimes you hit a rock bottom and you realize you need some help, and hopefully you let that rock bottom be your rock bottom. Like, whenever people are like, hey man, you need help, you take the time to listen to them, put your ego aside, let this rock bottom be your rock bottom, because you can always dig deeper. So listen to the people around you.
It's hard though, man. It is definitely hard to.
I'm not saying it's easy.
Put that ego aside and say, oh yeah, I need help.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. I need help. Or I am a dick.
Yeah. No, I
went through something very similar to you, Stephen, and I had to do the same thing. Had to my wife helped me through that as well. Made me realize, hey, I can't do this on my own. Like, I kept on saying, oh, I'll get through it. And she was like, no, you need some help. And therapy, psychiatrist, medications. It's okay. It's okay to have to use those to get back on track.
100%. Yeah. And it's like, you can think that, well, this is just how everyone feels. And so for me, I would be like, you don't necessarily know all the time. I mean, that's why you're talking about like your wife, you have a spouse or partner or close friends who from the outside can be like, no, this, like, what you're saying, what you're describing right now is not actually the experience that maybe you have to have. Like, you don't have to be feeling that way, but you don't necessarily know that when you're just totally sunken inside of yourself. You can really feel like, no, this is,
this is life.
This is what it's like,
Yeah.
So, it's, it's tough because as you guys, I'm sure both know, it's like in a marriage or in a family, like, it ripples out. So like you're not being the spouse or parent that you would like to be. And that makes it harder for your spouse to be the spouse you want them to be to you. Like, it's a cycle thing where, like, if there were times where now I can see that looking back, I can see that, okay, well, I was essentially like, I don't know if it was completely dead weight, but like my wife was having to like sort of mentally and emotionally kind of like lug me around too, or be concerned about me too.
Yeah.
And then on some random Tuesday when I'm like, I'm not really getting a lot of like positive attention from you. It's kind of like, well, yeah, because I'm having to like, like, so like it's already bad for you because you're feeling bad and you're like hating and you're miserable, but then like you're also, it emanates, it's bad. And so, and I don't mean that in like a blame judgmental way, but just like, it's not going to get better without, like you said, the help or listening to someone who says like, no, this is really like not good for you,
Yeah. And it is the reality of whenever you have kids or a spouse, that whenever, it's tricky because like, you don't want to say don't have bad days, don't be depressed, because that's not the correct answer. But there's a reality of it of whenever you aren't able to carry as much, the load doesn't lessen. So somehow that load still has to get carried. Your partner is normally one who picks it up.
Well, and I know for me, this is like not some genius insight. This is like, hey, communication is important. But like, that was the thing for me, is like, the conversation that we would end up having a lot. And now we have in a positive sense of proactively. It's kind of like, look, you know, when you're parenting and you and your partner are like trying to figure this out, it's like, you know, look, there are going to be some days where it's like, I'm going to have to do 80% of the stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's one thing to sort of know that because we've had this discussion and then it's another thing to just be like, oh, you're like here, but you're not present and really helping. Like, and, you know, I know that's a conversation that me and my wife have had where it's like, look, if you're having like a hard day or like you're like in a spot where you need to go for a walk right now, or like you can't, like you're at a place mentally where like you cannot wrestle them into bed right now.
Yeah.
Like we're a partnership in raising these kids. Like we can talk about that and that can be fine. But that's a big difference from like insisting that you're fine and then just actually making things much more difficult because you're like still there, you know, rather than just going on a walk. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like that's a game changer for sure. Just being like, no, actually it would be easier if you were just honest with yourself and with me and you went for a walk around the block. We could get the kids to bed. You would feel better. Everything would be fine. But it's not going to help if you just cling to the idea that you're fine actually. And like everyone can tell that you're stressed and now we're stressed and now everything's like, it's like,
you're ruining the mood a bit, buddy. Just go take a 20-minute walk. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And obviously like being able to recognize that in your partner and say, hey, you go do that, you know,
just go for a bit. You'll be fine. No, it's funny because there's the difference. It's the weird difference between you telling your spouse, hey, I need to go take a walk, and them telling you need to go take a walk. It's just a very drastic. Hopefully I can lead with, hey, it'd probably be good if I got out for 20 minutes, just did like a quick mile or something like that, versus your spouse looking at you and say it. It's just like, it's the same end result. You go on a walk, but for the journey to get there is drastically different.
Don't tell me what to do.
It's like, well, now you need to go do 2 walks. Get out of it.
Yes.
So, thank you for a very honest answer to that question.
Yeah, of course.
Steven. Do you go by Steven or Steve?
I go by Steven. I'm not offended by Steve. But I will say it's funny because I currently work with 3 other Steves or Stevens. So we have fully 4 Steves at the banner, and it's like some kind of sketch. I guess so. But no, either works. But I'm typically a Steven.
Steven, okay, cool. I mean, I would assume you mostly just call Cavendish though.
Yeah, Cavendish, Cav, Steve. I kind of still call him Steve a lot. Or now we have multiple Steves, so it's like that's tough. But
that's tough. But before we get to the end, I do really like what the banner does. My mom was a reporter, so my love of like local journalism is really high, and I really respect it. And I think Cavendish does like everything I read that Cavendish does. I just respect like everything he does. And so,
absolutely,
if you're there with him, I know you're doing good work and you're shining lights on stories that people usually don't want to look at.
Well, yes, absolutely, and I wouldn't have this job specifically without Steve Cavendish, but I may not be a journalist without him. I mean, he along with Jim Ridley, who was the editor of The Scene, like they hired me, you know, when I first got here. Eventually, I was freelancing for him, and he came into town and he gave me my first job, and he's the best. Yeah.
And we can all agree that if Phil Williams comes knocking at your door, you're probably about to have the worst day of your life.
Just don't answer. That's what I don't understand. Like, who is answering
who
the door?
Who watches Phil Williams walk up to them with a microphone and is like, this turns out in my favor?
You know,
no one.
Don't just don't be home for that.
Just don't be home. You know? Anyway, how we end every episode is we ask every guest the same 5 questions. It's not rapid fire. You have a second to think about it. When Justin is ready. We had one guest be like, is it rapid fire? And he looked really anxious. And I was like, oh, I should add that to the little intro of like, you have time to think, man. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All right. So did you have any backup names for your 2 girls?
Yes, we did. Well, I mean, backup. We actually made our family vote.
Did you really?
Okay. We did. I'm not entirely. It's one of those things where I don't know for sure if we would have, if we kind of had like unconsciously already decided and we would have just gone with, we would have either gone against them if they didn't go the way we went, but we did have them vote. But yes, so our daughters' names are Leighton and Holland.
Okay.
But we strongly considered Harlow for Leighton and we strongly considered Lola for Holland.
What made you go away from Lola?
I don't really know. It had some real momentum for a minute. Like everyone in the family was like singing
the Kinks.
Well, there's like more than one Lola song, I guess. But yeah, like people, there was real energy behind it. But then we ended up going a different way there. But sometimes we still look at them and go, I don't know, maybe you would.
Maybe.
But now they have baby dolls that they've just used those names for them. Okay. So it works out.
Gotcha.
Have you ever met another Holland?
No.
Because Joe Willis, the Nashville SC goalie, his daughter's name is Holland.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But you had it first, so you know. So you got this.
That's awesome.
Yes. Because he was like, his answer was like, no, we named her Holland. I think it's because I love Holland's national team. My wife tells me different.
Well, it is funny because our daughter Holland, she, it gets so we're watching the Olympics or whatever, like, they're from Holland, or like we'll see a sign, she's like, it's pretty thrilling. So
I hope orange is her favorite color.
We need to get her some
orange. Just get her some Van Persie jerseys. Anyway, just trying to isolate. I tried to isolate Justin at the beginning with guitar talk. Now I'm trying to isolate him with Netherlands national team from the mid 2000s discussions. Anyway, Steven, do you have a favorite TV dad?
Oh yeah, for sure. Bandit.
Yeah, that's Bandit. Yeah.
Is that's probably a cliche answer.
I mean, no, it's not that
it is cliche. The right answer though.
It's the right answer, and it's that everyone our age who watches it is like, how do I like? If you want to talk about the standard for fatherhood, a blue healer has defined it for an entire
It doesn't
generation.
get better. It doesn't get better than that. Yeah.
It doesn't at all.
No.
So,
yep.
All right. Next question. Do you have a least favorite kid show or movie?
Oh gosh. Yes, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think that's partly why like Bluey like inspires so much, is because like you sit through a lot that you don't love, and then you get to one, you're like, oh, this is great. I'm trying to think least favorite. The movies I'm usually pretty good with. Like I feel like most of the kids' movies they're not that. Even the ones that like I have some I like more than others. They're not that bad. I'm trying to think of the shows that I don't like. I got this is making me think we may just be mean, because there are also some that we were just like, oh, we're not watching that. Like, we're just not going to watch that anymore.
Don't worry.
I think every parent has done that.
We do that with like almost all YouTube content, almost all YouTube shows. We're like, besides Cosmic Kids Yoga, I'm not turning this on.
I got to be honest, none are really coming to me, and I think it's because they've gone through phases, so that like I'm sure there's some that I would kind of get over, but it's like, now they've moved on to a new one. Okay. So I don't really get too super annoyed by them. Also, even if it's one that I'm like, oh, I don't love the sound of this show, it's like they're occupied right now, I'm trying to finish something for work. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't really mind. Yeah. So I don't really.
I need to survive.
I'm kind of up for whatever on that front.
Okay. Do you have a favorite kids toy or activity? Like whenever your daughters play with it, you really enjoy doing it with them?
Oh yeah. I really love the Magnetiles.
Yeah, they're really fun.
I don't know if you're familiar with those. Yeah. Those are great. And I will. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like I like making things, and there's something like tactile about it. The feeling of the magnet, like it's a whole deal. They have kinetic sand too, which I can be like, let's do this. Let's just sit here and, so I don't know. Maybe I just need to get some for myself, but
you need to go work at like a children's museum or something like that.
So you're just like constantly, constantly both of those are good.
All right. Next question. What is one moment of your kid's life you're most excited to be a part of? It can be for both, or it could just be for one.
This is making me realize that I must tend to avoid thinking about the future, because the passage of time like is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
This is like maybe not a specific point in time, but I am very excited to see what they do. Yeah. Like, and I don't even just mean like professionally, like what is their job, but like what they do with their adult lives. And so like at that point, I am excited to know, like, this is what you're about. Like, this is because like my wife and I will sit around and talk about, like, you watch your kids and you go, oh, I can see them being like this, or they're kind of this way, or I can see them doing this kind of, and you think about how they're different. And so I'm excited for that, to just be like, oh, this is like, they're not that you're ever fully formed, you're always growing and changing, but like just what they kind of get really into once they are like adults and kind of at that point, you know, that's exciting.
Yep. Well, the other way we end our episodes is always making sure to give people an opportunity to promote themselves in any way. So like if we want to find your book, what's the way to find it? I know your audiobook is on Audible because I already pre-ordered it.
Thank you. Yes, the audiobook will be out on the 20th of August. It may well be available right now as you're hearing this. But, so there's that. The hardcover book is just available wherever books are sold.
Just a sidebar, what type of distribution did you get? Did you get like the big bookstores like Barnes and Noble, or did you get like independent stores?
It's pretty much everywhere. I mean,
that's
it's
awesome,
in
man.
the independents. It's in, you know, I'll pop into Books A Million sometimes and put it in front or change, you know, put the cover out or something.
Nice.
But yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I definitely love, like, I will say, like, if you have an independent bookstore around you, like, go there and buy it there because those places are great.
Did you do anything at Parnassus for the book?
I did get to do an event at Parnassus, and
That's cool.
It was such a gift. It was so cool. It was really cool to get to do that. So yeah, that's that. I mean, I'm on, for better or worse, I'm on Twitter, at I am Stephen Hale is my handle there. I'm on Instagram as well. But yeah, so let's see that. Those are, you know, I'm on all the social medias. Nashville Banner. Look us up on NashvilleBanner.com or on social media. We got a daily newsletter you can sign up for. That's real good. So everyone should check that out. Yep. I think that's all the places.
Hey, I mean, that's quite a few places. You're in hundreds of books. Walk into a bookstore, you might see my name somewhere.
I'm around.
That's pretty cool, man.
That's really cool, man. Congrats on finishing the book. Congrats on getting it published.
Thank you so much.
It's a ton of work, and way to work through your own personal demons to actually get it on paper and get it published.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on. It's it's thrilling.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
Thanks for
thanks for talking Bread and Company for at least an hour. You know,
of course. And I mean, listen, everyone in my life is getting a real kick out of the idea of me as like parental influencer. So
yes, that's right.
Into this.
Well, don't worry. Every time we post something, all of our friends and family get a kick out of the concept of us being parental influencers.
Yep.
So that's awesome.
No,
seriously, I really love what you guys are up to. It was super cool to get to chat with you. So
well,
thanks for the invite.
Thanks again, Stephen. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate it, man.
Hey, thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks so much for listening. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Nashville Dads, and make sure to follow us on anywhere you find your podcast, and please give us a 5-star rating. And thank you to Matt Oakes for providing the music for the episode. Catch you next time.